December 10th, 1992. 2 days before my 40th birthday, I was in the midst of a perfectly awful day at work when a fax landed on my desk. I pulled my eyes from the computer screen to look at it. A page of personal ads in the Dallas Observer, a free weekly newspaper. I looked at the top of the fax page and saw the handwritten message. Just trying to help. Love, Doug and Elizabeth. A little background here. Doug and Elizabeth were the same well-meaning friends who had lovingly reminded me just the week before that I was still single and must consider my standards for dating were a little steep. And if anybody would know, they would. At a cocktail party several years earlier, I had declared that I would not go out with any man unless he had teeth and a driver's license. It just kind of poured out of my mouth, and it surprised me as much as it did anybody else. Everybody roared, and I was suddenly the clever single girl. Teeth and a driver's license became a catchphrase with my crowd, certain to bring laughs to any conversation. When friends insisted I tell new acquaintances about my dating life, I usually tried to play it cool, saying something like, well, the reason I don't date much is because my standards are so high. Then I would pause until I got the full, expectant look from them to blurt out my well-practiced line, teeth and a driver's license. While my captive audience howled, they would wave at others. Sorry. No, I did that again. No, that's fine. While my captive audience howled. While my captive audience howled, they would wave at others to come over and talk to the clever single girl. I was quite a hit. However, it did almost nothing for my dating life. Shortly before my 40th birthday, I was reminded by these same well-meaning friends, perhaps it was time to lower my standards. So, once again, after a few cocktails, I came up with the logical step down from teeth and a driver's license. A partial plate and a bus pass. Everyone roared again, and I had my new tagline for my new decade. And then came this fax. From just trying to help at the top of the page, my eyes raced down to a boldly circled ad in all caps. Single white female, attractive, witty, likes to have fun. Seeks single white male with teeth and driver's license. Will settle for partial plate and bus pass. A 900 number voicemail box for interested parties to call was listed in the ad, and my friends had given me the code to retrieve the messages. The responder paid to leave the message, but I could listen for free. This was cutting-edge technology in the early 90s, way before the internet. When I finally stopped laughing, I could hardly wait to start listening. Would anybody call an ad like that and pay to do it? The answer is yes. Over the next 3 weeks, I got over 30 calls. I take them all. The first day's messages were from men who obviously must have called every single new ad every week. They were businesslike, to the point. Hi, my name's Rick. I like to water ski. Hope to hear from you. Hey, this is Joe. I'm out of town until Friday, but please call then. I'd love to go out. I'm thinking to myself, are you guys serious? You're calling me based on what? It quickly got worse. Hi, I'm Robert, and I don't have a partial plate, but I do have a steel plate in my head. Ha 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 ha, just joking. I'm looking for someone to take walks in the rain, look for seashells, chase rainbows, fly kites with, and then to take naps with, and dream with, and take long bubble baths with. Oh, Robert. This is your response to an ad that says teeth and a driver's license will settle for partial plate and bus pass? I couldn't couldn't bear to think what kind of message he left for the sappy ads. Then there were the get right to the point messages. Well, I hope you're 32 or younger because I definitely want to have kids, preferably 3. What? And a few angry ones. You specified nothing about age. What age man are you looking for? Or, I'd like to know about your interests. Why didn't you mention that and I wouldn't have to call this 900 number? I'm thinking, okay, so don't call. A voice that sounded like Elvis reincarnated informed me that he was 6'2", athletical built, and a part-time pro wrestler. I'm not making that up. Another oh-so-sincere voice in tone. And food-wise, I like seafood and steak and Chinese and occasionally Italian or Mexican. Come on, big guy, get yourself a taco, live it up. There were a couple of great calls. This is the funniest thing I've ever read, and I just had to talk to whoever placed this ad. And gee, if we can get our bus schedules coordinated, maybe we should meet for a cup of coffee. I considered calling those 2 guys back. After listening to all the nut burger calls, I really felt like talking to somebody who actually got the humor. On the other hand, it wasn't like I was the one desperate to find a husband. I hadn't even placed the ad. But it did seem a waste to have this adventure fall into my lap and not follow through. So after some encouragement, I made the calls. The first call was awkward, and neither of us suggested an actual meeting. But it did make me realize I had nothing to lose, so I called the second guy. He was thrilled to hear from me. He wanted to know all about the ad, and he really enjoyed listening to my story. He was a few years younger, and he seemed nice enough, and he was so interested in talking to me. I started thinking, well, it couldn't hurt to meet a guy who appreciated my offbeat sensibilities. Then all of a sudden, there was a lot of clattering and banging around in the background, and some yelling back and forth, partially muffled by a covered phone receiver. Finally, he came back to the conversation and explained he had custody of his 3 very young children. No wonder he was so eager to talk. He needed the diversion. And I realized with absolute clarity that I did not. 10 years later, as I approached 50, Doug and Elizabeth asked the inevitable question. Time to lower your standards again? They had plenty of ideas. The guy with the walker, full set of choppers, full-time nurse and a book of delicious soup recipes. You get the idea. It was pretty tempting to carry on the joke, and with Match.com and eHarmony, there probably would have been about 8 times more responses. But really, how many part-time pro wrestlers does one girl need? And you know how Oprah says to put your wishes out there in the universe and they'll come to you? Sometimes you really do get exactly what you asked for. For my 50th birthday, I received a shadow box frame with, you guessed it, a partial plate and a bus pass. No guy was included, but I figured that was probably just as well. After all, I'd already grown to love being a clever single girl. Woo!